Ruvlo, welcome to the Underground Society podcast. Where are you streaming from right now? I know you're from New York. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm in Staten Island,
Okay.
New York.
But you still live there?
It's pretty much Jersey.
Yeah.
Born and raised.
Yeah. How was Staten Island growing up? I recently saw that movie, The King of Staten Island. That was an interesting movie.
Yeah, it's a decent representation of it because for me, I think this is like kind of like what sparked me into really trying to head into this direction of music production. And like I've talked to people about it from here, and they like always give me this like kind of like salty response. But what everyone does, because it's like it's New York City, right? But it's not Brooklyn, it's not Manhattan,
Right.
It's not the concrete jungle. It's all suburbs, it's all family. It's a pretty like basic. It's like small town mentality in like a somewhat big city. You know what I mean? So the direction that a lot of people go towards is like being like a city worker or like like a nurse or something like that.
Right.
So like most of the people that I know are in like construction or like becoming a cop or a firefighter or like sanitation and stuff like
Working
that.
for the
and,
city, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's not many people. And this is like, I'm super grateful for meeting him. Richie Black Sheep. You just had him on the podcast.
Yep.
He lived literally 3 blocks away from me.
Shit.
When I like met him on the internet. I was like, holy shit! Like, it says Staten Island. Like, you live in Staten Island, and he like told me where he lived, and I was like, dude, you live like 5 minutes away
That's
from
insane.
me.
You guys never knew each other?
No. This was
Wild.
when I was probably 16. So like, this is like really, this is 8 years ago almost.
Are you guys are you guys the same age, or what's the age difference?
No,
there?
he's I believe he's 27.
Okay.
He's a few years older than me.
Got it.
So when I met him, I was, I barely had any music out. I was making like hard house at the time. And that's where I like came from. Me and VRG, I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yep.
But me and him he was like one of my first real like friends in the scene, and we were both making like hard house. We had like a couple of songs together and stuff like that.
People don't even make that anymore.
Yeah, it was a good time. But yeah, I don't know, just like seeing like the path that people were going into. I wasn't like a popular kid in high school by any means, like very small friend group. I was always doing something else. Like, everyone, the school I went to is known for like, it's like a prestigious like all boys Catholic high school.
Okay.
You go there to play like sports, you know what I mean?
Got it, yep.
And I wasn't playing sports. I was like skateboarding, and like I had like a little rock band with like a couple of my friends, and I was a drummer. And then I remember when I got into production, there was a kid that I met. His name is Greg. He goes by Zax, and like I owe everything to that kid. And he was a big room producer, like progressive house, electro. And I met him like my first day of school, and I was a freshman. He was a sophomore, and he was just like kind of showing me around and whatnot. And I like looked up to this kid because I loved his music and stuff like that. And next year he got kicked out of school, I think, because like grades weren't so great or something like that. And then he went to another school, and then he dropped out because he was going on tour. He went on like a U.S. tour or something like that. Then went on to go on tour with Tiesto when he was like 17
Holy
years
crap.
old or something like that. So like I always looked up to this kid, and I was like, you know what, like I've been listening to dubstep and like trap and big room since I was like 12, 13 years old. Like let me try downloading FL Studio and see what happens. And so I was doing that stuff while everyone's mind was set on like football or whatever it was. So like I couldn't like really relate to anyone, you know what I mean? And that's kind of just where that like drive to like do something different came from, was like everyone's doing the same thing, like I don't want to do that, I want to do something else.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up here.
Yeah, I've heard that like Staten Island really isn't like the too crazy.
There's no scene.
Yeah, there's
here.
really no scene. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably could count all the kids that even listen to this type of music on
man.
like 2 hands. You know what I mean? Like, and I know all those kids, and it's not a big group.
Yeah. So there was no like, where would you like go to shows?
I think my first event was probably it was a U18 event at Pasha. I believe it was Morgan Page. That was my
Okay.
first time like going to like a show.
Great music. I love Morgan.
And then eventually I went to Madion at Webster Hall with it was Madion and Matt Zoe, I think.
Oh, nice.
And then after that I went to like a Casimir show, and that's where Zax opened up for him.
Nice.
So those are like one of my few first shows. And then my first festival I went to was Bamboozle in 2012 in Asbury Park, New Jersey.
Okay.
I saw Skrillex there, and that was like my first dubstep set. And that was it. And like right after that went to Electric Adventure, saw like Dioro, Destroyed, shout out Excision,
Yeah.
and like Figure and a couple other people, and like that's when like that was it. Like,
Yeah.
this was my thing, you know what I mean?
That's dope.
But I didn't start producing till probably a few years after that.
Yeah, have you always gone by Ruvlo, or when did that kind of come into the?
Yeah.
Okay.
When it comes to music, I could make music, but if it's something else that's creative, like my brain doesn't work. So I was like, it was during like the golden age of like trap. We had like Loud Pack and like stuff like that, and everyone had the upside down A as a V. So I just made my last name Ruvlo, and I had this like weird debate. I remember I was like, I don't know if I should go as Ruwalo or Ruvlo, but like when you look at the name, like nobody would know that it's Ruwalo, so I just wanted Ruvlo. Even it's like, and people pronounce the name wrong all the time, because like my last name's Ruwalo, you would imagine it's Ruvlo,
right?
And like so many people still call me that, and I just let it go. Yeah, it makes sense. It's just like English language is a weird thing.
Yeah, when I first learned who you were and learned what your name was, I'm pretty sure I was saying Ruvlo.
Yeah, everyone does. It's fine.
How did you go about? Because obviously, at least in the bass music industry, it's a little different. Like guys like you just mentioned, like Morgan Page, like he just uses his name, and obviously you're using your name in a way, but you want to build a brand around that. How have you gone about like doing so?
That's honestly something I'm still working on. It's definitely like when you hear my name, I don't know, like, what would you think of? Because I personally, I struggle with that.
There's a lot of names where I'm just like, I have no idea.
Exactly. And that's my problem. And that's the thing
even Subtronics, like, what the hell's a Cyclops? Like, how does that tie into...
Right.
What?
Yeah, and that's the cool thing, though. And I wish I kind of had that as, like, even if it has nothing to do with the name, you have that, like, brand image. Yeah. And that's something I've been, like, trying to figure out for a while. And, like, starting with the EP that I did on Cannonball, and we did, like, the giant spider thing. And, it's something that I do kind of want to move forward using a lot as like, and so like it's recognizable, but it's kind of hard to like make it work with everything. Yeah. So it's I'm still in that like weird building phase of like the branding stuff.
What's the logo? What's the Ruvlo logo? What is that?
That's something that we just did probably about 6 months ago. Okay. So it's not something that means anything at all. It's kind of just more of like the symbol of like it's unique. And when you see it enough times, we start, once we start putting in artwork and merch over and over again, it's just one of those things that you see it and you know what it is. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm hoping that just kind of catches on. Like there's nothing necessarily any meaning to it, and a lot of like brands have that where it's just like there's no meaning to it. It's just something that you see that nothing else looks like that, so you're gonna know like that's what it is. Yeah.
Like same thing.
And that's what we're gonna kind of do, running like moving forward, like merch and like artwork. Just throw it in there, have people see it over and over again, and finally it sticks in their head.
Same thing with Nike and the swoosh, like how much that swoosh is worth. Like holy shit.
It's like what does that really mean? Yeah. It's like it's just recognizable.
Yeah, I think too. Like we were talking a little bit before the interview, was like how unique your sound is. Do you think that because of that, it's gained you any like collabs that you've done? Because you've done a lot.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people from the lowest tiers of artists all the way up to Skrillex have played my music. So
yeah, that's right. Skrillex has played your music.
Yeah, I was there for that, and that was the craziest thing ever. I ripped my phone out of my pocket so fast, and I was just like in shock, But what it comes down to is, well, one thing that I did to kind of always have stand out, like when you listen to it, is in the build-ups of like all my songs, I have that like ha.
Yes.
Yeah. So that that's another thing. It means nothing, but once you hear it over and over, it's my song. So like people could be out at a show, and the DJ is playing it, and it's building up, and then you hear the ha. Like you could have literally never heard that song before, but all of a sudden it's mine. And a lot of people.
Where'd you get that idea from?
It came from like. Just like the whole rap realm, like producer tags, like as soon as a song starts, you hear like like somebody, it doesn't matter, like whoever it is, like say for example
Mike Wellmader or whatever
exactly, exactly, something like that. As soon as it comes on, you're like, okay, like I know this is like him producing the song. And like the ha, as soon as you hear it in the build up, because like for the most part when people DJ, like they're gonna at least play the build up, so you'll hear it and then you're gonna know it's mine. I put it in a song probably like 5 years ago, and it was just one of those things that I was like, oh, this is cool, like this is like a unique little sample, like no one else like uses this, because like I process it in my own way, and I just use it again and then again, and I was like, all right, like this is my tag,
That's
Kind of
dope.
like something how like GRX has like that like horse.
The horse
neigh,
head, yep.
and, like, yeah,
he just released a new
like,
song. Shit, what was his newest release? Like he didn't put it in till like almost the very end. I was like, where is the horse? And then it finally played. I was like, yes, there it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of times I'll be like working on music and like I'll listen back and I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to put the high, and I'll just throw it in there and I'm like, done.
Going back to the Skrillex thing, I'm kind of curious. How long ago was that, and how did he find that song?
Was last. I want to say it was either early this year. I think it was sometime in like the winter, January to March probably. I couldn't tell you how he found that song. It's only on SoundCloud. At the time that he played it, it had probably about 9,000 plays. So I don't know where he got it from. I don't know how he heard it, but it ended up in his lap somehow, and he played it out, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, because the whole time of the show, he's playing like 128 to 134 BPM.
Mm-hmm.
So in my head, I'm like, I don't have any songs like that. And as soon as he played it, I was like, holy shit, like, that song is like 130. And that was it. I was like, wow,
That's awesome.
This is Skrillex.
How long had that song been out until he played it?
Probably about 6-7 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, damn, that's cool.
And it was just like it was in a pack that I released. It was called like Flip Fridays. So every week for 4 weeks, every Friday I put out like a remix of like an old song on SoundCloud. And I'm actually doing it again this year. I have a remix to Paramore's All I Wanted. I'm doing a VIP to my Lambo remix. I did a remix to Skrillex's Scary Bali Dub. And I have one more.
I'm going to go listen to that.
It's an old one. And then the fourth one, I have two actually. I'm probably going to put them out on the same day as like a bonus. One of them is to Giant Spaghetti Monster by Dr. P.
Yep.
And then the other one, I can't remember what it was. I would have to look, but yeah. So we're gonna do that in October, right after Lost Lands. I'm gonna put out my mix for Lost Lands, and then October we're just gonna hit them with like 5 songs in a month.
Awesome! I am so excited for your set. I will be there. Your set last year was
hell yeah!
Awesome.
Oh, you were there?
Yeah.
Were you there?
Yeah.
You just listened?
No, I was there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You had a pretty good crowd for your set last year.
I thought nobody was gonna come.
Luckily, they put you after the big sets, though. They played you they actually put you at the sound camp time, so that's nice. Because a lot of people, even like Stone Love, I love his music. I know he has a big crowd of people that were there that loved him, but he played like earlier in the day when all the other sets were going on.
He played at like 4 o'clock maybe or something like that. It was in the daytime, I remember. But yeah, same thing this year. I'm doing 12 a.m. on the Asteroid stage on Sunday. So like same day, same night.
That Asteroid stage is fucking hot, dude. It's super hot.
Yeah, I got some angry tweets at me, not towards me, but they're like, oh, like why is he playing the Asteroid? I got like 10 tweets about that, and I was just like, hey, it is what it is. It's gonna be fun. And they're like, there's no room in there, and I'm like, hey, it'll be intimate, I guess, right?
Yeah.
It'll be nice because the Subsidious stage, we had a lot of people there, and I remember
That's
like
a pretty fast
there was like
too.
a couple mosh. Yeah, it was way bigger than I expected. I didn't know what to expect, and I remember going there Thursday night to go check out the other stages. And when we got to the Subsidious stage, they're still building it, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is beautiful!"
Mm-hmm.
Like I like that stage a lot more than like Wampy.
Yeah,
like, I thought it was like really nice, like the 3 panels of like visuals,
and, like wrapped in the back.
Yeah, it was nice to like, as I'm playing, like I could see all the lights coming from around me, so it's
That's
just like
cool.
it was super bright and like a really cool stage.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
Going back to you were talking about Skrillex, but another person that you've been kind of, and I think you're pretty good friends with him at this point, but you've done work with Slushii. How did that?
He actually just texted me yesterday. He was like, I think what did he say? He said he just wanted to, I think he was working on a project and he wanted to send me over some songs to do another one. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get an idea going in the next like couple months, I'm sure.
Dude, I have to, that Invaders from Mars collab that you guys did was probably, I like a lot of his music. His newer, he plays around with a lot of different styles, obviously. But from that specific album, I think that was one of like at least my top 2 favorite songs. Like you guys did a phenomenal job on that. How did you first meet Slushii? Like how did that?
I think he just like followed me on Twitter one day and just like reached out to me and was like, "Hey, like love your music," and I was like, "Oh hell yeah, like thank you so much." And I think we talked for like literally a couple DMs, and it was like, "All right, let's make a song together."
That's sick.
And I want to say that was sometime around like August of like 2019 or something like that, August, September, because we had the song done by December 2019 because we were both playing Lights on Night in Dallas, and I was supposed to go on stage for that song with him, but my flight came in like it was like late by like 30 minutes, so I missed it. But we finished that song in 2019, and it didn't come out till late 2021, which was crazy. But yeah, we sat on that song for like 2 years, and it was probably about a couple months or 3 months before the song was like actually in the works of coming out. And his plan was, he's like, I don't want to release an album right now because, like, during quarantine there wasn't shows going on, and when the song comes out, you want people to play it out and stuff like that. So we had to like put it on hold, and like honestly I was happy to do that because it did make sense. Like, by the time shows came back, like I probably wouldn't really be playing that song, and like no one, it's an old song. EDM has a very short lifespan for their songs.
Yes, very much.
A song comes out, everyone's like, it's 2 weeks later, like, oh, that's old news. And it's like sick.
Because I feel like it's just because like the market keeps getting more and more saturated, like almost every year, and it's like,
people release music every day.
Every day, and it's hard to stand out from the pack in a lot of ways, but and that's why it's so important, bringing back to our original point of being different and using creative like sound design and having little tags and stuff like that. It definitely helps. Who else have you done collabs with?
I just put out my 3rd collab with Crankdat.
Oh yeah, that's right. His career is doing amazing too.
Yeah, he's one of the best like sound designers and just everything, like all around visual designers. He's amazing.
Oh, he does that too?
All of his visuals, he does himself. All the artworks, like like all those like robotic stuff, like that's all him. He's a monster.
Wow,
he's a machine. Yeah,
that's crazy. And then
he's a jack of all trades.
Miso as well, right?
Yeah, we had that song. We decided not to put it out, and then we were going to put it out, and then Fortnite reached out to me and wanted music from me, and I sent them that song, and that was like the song that got chosen to be in there, and even till today, people still ask me for like downloads to that song. So I think it's just like one of those songs I'm going to like try to sneak into the actual release. Because it's like a fun song. It's cool.
It's not actually released?
No. Oh. We finished that song probably a year and a half ago, I want to say. And it's just like one of those songs that I'm still sitting on, and like when I'm in the car, sometimes I'll even listen to it. And I'm like, damn, like, we should just like put it out, like say fuck it.
Yeah, just self-release it.
I mean, I just sent it off to a label actually to see if they wanted it. So I mean, like, you'll see what happens.
How do a lot of your collaborations kind of happen? I mean, obviously with Slushii, just followed you on Twitter, but do you just through networking and people wanting to work with you, or? Yeah,
I mean, realistically, what I like to do for my collabs is everyone that I've ever collabed with or have a song with, like, that's unreleased, they're all like my friends. I'm not really one to like reach out to someone that just because I like their stuff. I like working with like my friends because it creates like a more organic, chemistry of like the songwriting process, and because it's like it's a lot easier to like give feedback back and forth between like you and your friend rather than like someone that you don't really know, because then it's like you're like really like, kind of like just stepping on thin ice when
you don't want to hurt their feelings.
Like, oh, I don't like this exactly. Yeah. But if it's like my friend, I'm like, yo, that shit is garbage. Let's not do that. And they're like, all right, fine. So you have the ability, like the freedom to do that. But everyone that I have a song with, like I consider them like a good friend of mine, or like anything like that, and it just makes collabs a lot easier.
Do you normally? How do you work on collabs usually? Is it all just like online? You send stems back and forth, or is it just?
Yeah, so I'm on FL Studio, and most people are in Ableton. So every time they're like, oh, like what DAW are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm in FL, and they're like,
hey, doesn't Excision use FL though?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Yeah. So everyone, every time I say FL, they're like, ah, crap. Like, okay, I gotta send stems over, and I'm like, yep, sorry.
FL is.
But I make it work. I like working with it.
Not always, I guess, but I feel like at least at least in like the rap world, I feel like a lot more people use FL too. Like it does. Yeah, it's more like genre dependent.
It's definitely easier for beats with like the sequencing of like MIDI for drums. It's like a lot better for like hi-hats and like just like stuff like that. You have a bit more control of like the piano rolls. But when it comes down to like EDM, like I mean, you could use really whatever,
Where did you?
It's just like.
Where did you get a lot of your education from? I mean, you've been doing it for a long time, so obviously just practice, but.
Yeah, it's one thing I always say. It's just kind of trial and error. Yeah. I hate watching YouTube tutorials.
Really?
Because like I would say 90% of them aren't really that great.
Yeah. Or they rush through it, or like they don't actually show you like the detailed stuff. Yeah.
A lot of people that do tutorials aren't the people like making like the best music. They'll kind of show you how to do something, but like for me, like if I want to watch a tutorial, I want to watch it from someone that like I look up to, and there's not a lot of people out there that do that. There's some, but it's very hard to find like good tutorials in my opinion. So yeah, a lot of the stuff has been trial and error. It's just over the years of just like, you know, it's just throwing paint at the wall until it makes something pretty, you know what I mean? And it's kind of just something that I just learned to just like sit down and, you know, if one day I decide to like try to figure out how to do something, I'll watch like a video of like slightly how to do it, but then I'll do like my own take of like trying to get to that end result.
I know that's how a lot of people learn. Do you think that has anything to do with like why a lot of the music that's coming out today like sounds the same?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the same thing as like rap beats, right? You know, you could look up like, I don't know, like XXXTentacion type beat, and you can learn how to make something like that. So on YouTube, it's like how to make a Barely Alive growl, right? And like, you know, you make that and everyone's going to make the same type of sounds. Some of the best producers that are coming up are kids that are just like reinventing like what bass music is and creating their own sound, you know?
You look at like Mark Kismet. Crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's nobody that makes music that sounds like More Kismet, you know, like More Kismet is like their own sound and style, you know. If you were to emulate that, it's just a clear rip-off, you know. And that's what's like the beauty of like artists like More Kismet. It's like they got their own style, and you know they mark that as their territory, you know. And those are like people like that are some of just like the best producers, you know.
Was it
and that's why it's important.
Do you think it was a challenge for you to start to develop like the Ruvlo sound originally? Like how long did that take you?
It kind of just came by accident. I feel like you know, it kind of all started off with, you know, anytime anyone like will talk about my music, it's always like the signature like sustain basses, right? That long like blah, and that was just like something that came over time. It's like, you know, doing it one time and then the next song it's taking that sound and like kind of reprocessing it and making like a new thing out of it, and then over time it's like you kind of have that formula of like, this is what's going to be in the song, but we're going to do it a little bit different this time. And like eventually over and over, you're going to have that same element, but it's going to sound different in each case. But like you could always tell it's still like my sound, you know what I mean? And that's something that I take like pride in, like the, you know, like the whole, like it's like a meme at this point, but like the sustained bass is like, that's just like my thing. Like I feel like I definitely nailed it. Like I know how to make it sound good, because like when I listen to people that do like the sustained basses, I'm like super like critical on it. Like
cringe.
Like I know what's like a good sustain, and I mean like what isn't, but it's definitely something that I take pride in. It's like, this is like, you hear a song like this, you're gonna know it's me most likely.
It's like I think Atelians and like G-Rex are like my top 3 favorite when it comes to like that kind of style of bass music.
Yeah, they're awesome.
I actually met Atelians. They played a show. I live in California, so in NorCal. They played a show up here, and I actually was working for the production team, and I picked them up from the airport, and I was like, it was so cool meeting them. Like, I know you've.
I love both of them. They're great.
You did
people,
a remix for them too, right?
Yeah, I did 2 of them. I did the first one was Fuck That probably a couple years ago, and then I just did UFO. So it was really dope.
How was it like writing those songs and doing the remixes, like the official, like doing official remixes for like guys at that level?
It's cool. You know, you get the stems and you kind of like pick apart their brain of like what they did to make that song, and like you look over everything and it's like, okay, like how do I take like the main elements of these songs but make it my own? And
I feel like you learn a lot in that process too. Like,
I definitely like there's times like before I even start the song, like I'll just, you know, listen to each stem on its own and kind of see what they're doing and how they got to that point, and like, you know, I'll learn stuff from that in itself.
Cool. How do you throw your own flavor into like a remix?
I kind of go about making the song as if it was an original of my own, but I'll take the main elements from like the drop, you know, like the like whatever song it is. If it's like, if there's like a call or response bass that like, you know, everyone kind of knows, you'll take just that piece and you'll fit it in. Like, you know, what I'll do for like remixes, like I try to make it sound like it's not the original, but I try to make it sound like it's its own new song with some of those elements from like the original song.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Interesting. Where did you learn that like having your own sound was like important to have, like to like really take your career to that next level?
Yeah, I think that kind of came when I put out the Lambo remix. When that like kind of blew up, that's when I realized like, okay, like this is what people are looking at when they think of me, so I'm gonna start making songs that kind of follow that sound. And over time it just like it was like a snowball effect. Once you start it, like
Yeah.
the next song will kind of be like that, but its own thing, and then like it evolves. And that was like my transition to what I'm making now, is taking all those like sustains, but in that like trap style, and then reworking it into like a dubstep song now. So like it'll take a lot of those same elements, but have a different genre essentially.
Yeah.
So it's been like a cool.
Why did you change from
ride.
like making the hard house stuff to like what you do now? Like what?
Hard house was just like it was just like a different time. That's
Okay.
when Junkie Kid and stuff like that was like really fucking like poppin' and cool. And I just love that like hard element of it. I didn't like hard style really, but I like that like 128 version of like hard style. It was like really cool. I feel like it was very influenced by the kids that I was like talking to, because like back then like you would have like Facebook group chats, right, of like
Yeah.
other producers in like 2015, 2016. So like you took a lot of influence by like the people you would talk to.
What made you like want to change? Like, who was your inspiration of changing into like your sound now?
Well, so just to give like a kind of a bigger idea, like hard house, that was like popping at the time, and then like the festival trap wave came over. Like everyone was doing like Slander, and everyone was doing festival trap remixes.
And like the heaven
that's
trap
when
too,
I
they
really
used to do. Yeah.
exactly yeah. And that's kind of when I got into trap, like producing it, and then eventually you steer away from that and you start making your own original trap songs. And then hybrid trap came out, and then like the whole like Peekaboo, GRX, Babatunde era came out, and you take everything that you learned back then.
Huge.
Oh yeah. I mean that created thousands of songs that sounded just like that, followed the same formula. But yeah, it was just kind of like what I did was I just took everything that I learned from this type of music that I was making first, brought it to the next one, and then whatever I wanted to make next, took everything I learned from there, brought it over. So like even today, like there was a song I was just working on yesterday that I was using samples from like a sample pack that I was using in 2016 to make Hard House,
Wow.
just to have that like crunchy, like gritty sound to it. So I always go back to like, my roots of like where I came from in production. Yeah.
I think that's so interesting.
Just, like, looking back.
Especially like back then when you were learning and stuff like the hard house, I'm sure like you're like, okay, I'm just learning how to like make music in the first place. Like, and you're taking it's like, okay, these guys like this. So like you said, this is who I'm around. They know what they're doing in this aspect, but then you kind of just slowly build on top of that. Do you think you would have gotten the same opportunities that you have gotten and like the shows that you're playing, like the festival slots and stuff like that? Do you think if you wouldn't have like transitioned into what you make now, do you think that would have ever happened? I mean, some of your festivals I know, like Bass Canyon and Lost Lands, like that wouldn't have fit that festival, but like on that caliber, do you think that would have happened?
I don't think so.
No.
I think it was a very like moment in time of when a certain genre was like really popping.
Yeah.
EDM, it has its life cycles of like what's in and then what's out, and like what's popping right now could be completely dead in a year. Like look at like Future Bass when it came out, when everyone was making
one
like
makes that shit anymore.
Future Bass and all the cymatic stuff. Yeah.
And
fast forward a year and a half later, it was like if you made that type of stuff, it's like, what are you doing?
It's interesting how dubstep is like had such. I mean, there's been different like iterations and stuff of and like progression of the dubstep world, but it's interesting how long that genre's been around now. Because like for a while,
and I
just,
remember
like,
there was a
trance and
certain
house.
time it was even like I want to say like 2016, 2017 maybe. There was a time when dubstep was like pretty dead, at least from my perspective. I remember like it was just all like the hybrid trap and stuff like that.
Even
took
Excision
over
used to
and,
play trap in his sets. Detox sets he does, but like his main sets, no way.
Yeah. And there was a time where like dubstep just like wasn't really much of like a dominant thing as it is today. So it's interesting to see like what comes and goes and then what stays. You know what I mean?
Where do you think the future is heading in the next like couple years?
With this type of music, it literally just takes one person to make one song, and then like look at like people like Chime and Ace Aura,
I love those
stuff
guys.
like that. Like those like that like melodic rhythm type of like color based stuff. As soon as like they were putting that out and it caught like wind, everyone was making that type of stuff.
What was interesting about that time is like Chime had been doing like he's probably like one of the leaders of that, but like I almost felt like it wasn't until Ace Aura that it really like popped.
Yeah,
it was interesting.
And that's all it takes.
Yeah.
It's just like a couple songs to really like pop off like that, and all of a sudden you have a whole market full of that type of music.
Yeah. And now you have
you have
the next generation looking at those guys of like, okay, now I want to make that, and it's like like you said, it's
exactly.
a whole market.
And that goes for what you asked, like you never know what's going to be next. It just takes one person really to like, have that. There could be somebody right now that's been producing a certain style for the past few years, but until it pops off, like that style doesn't exist yet, really.
Yeah. What do you think has been different about your journey than maybe someone else's?
It's tough to say, but I think I face a lot of my challenges as someone who doesn't have like a big agent or like a big management team. It's like, I only got an agent about a year ago, and my manager, I've been with him for like a little less than 3 years. But a lot of people that rise to the top or like really pop off, like they have some sort of like mega team behind them. And it's cool. Like I always felt like doing this stuff, I want it to be as organic as possible. Like I don't want to be like an industry plant. I just want to like make music and have people like it. And that's definitely a hard thing because like sometimes you just feel so lost. Like you'll be putting out music that all the big DJs are playing, but like you're not playing those festivals. And like I do take pride in the fact that like everything I've ever done is like pretty organic. Like there's no like mystery behind it. There's no like puppets, like no hands pulling like what I'm doing. It's just like whatever comes out, like that's me, and whatever happens is because of the work that I've put in. And it's a very challenging thing to do in today's market because like a lot of the big industry heads, they have control of who's playing the festivals and who's on tours and stuff like that. And
well, not to call anyone out, because I think he does a pretty fair job and to a certain degree, but Excision kind of runs his business like that to a certain degree. I mean, with his label and like helping, he does definitely help the next generation come up though. Like he definitely, he definitely puts people on and stuff. So like very appreciative of how he does that. But I think
he's
that's
amazing
kinda,
for that.
To a certain degree, I think that's kind of what he does. But like any of the big guys kind of have, it's kind of like the way that like the high level business kind of thing works. Do you ever see yourself getting to a point like that? Like once you become like on that level, do you ever see yourself kind of almost turning it into like your own like thing, like with like helping other artists come up and having like your own label and stuff like that?
I try not to think too far into the future like that. I like to focus on like what's going on right now, because if you don't focus on what's going on right now, like you're gonna lose sight of and so it's hard. I mean, like whether or not my career lasts through music, I always want to stay in music, like the music industry. Whether it's like working for like labels or stuff like that. Like that's just where my heart lies. But if I ever came to the point where it was like big, like I would definitely love to like do like what Excision's doing and like help out like smaller producers, because like I know the struggle, and it's really hard to stand out in a very saturated market and like get the help that you need, because like there's a lot of kids that are have a few thousand followers that are making like better music than any of the headliners, and like they don't get the shine, and like I definitely want those kids to be the ones that are getting the shine.
A lot of those people too, like those are the ones that are really going to appreciate it when like it's the people who just get stuff handed to them. It's almost like they almost like become jaded. Like the people who like have to work for it, they almost appreciate it, and they're going to add more, to a certain degree, add a little bit more value to our industry than just the people that are like handed the opportunity to.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better.
What is your opinion on like, kind of going off of that, what's your opinion on like certain people like trying to maybe like cheat the system, who like may have like more funding or like may have like other better opportunities, or they come from money or whatever it may be? What's your opinion on that kind of stuff?
You can't really blame them. There's two ways to look at the industry, right? There's the route of doing things organically, just putting out music and letting the people, like the fans, decide your faith, right? If you make good music and they love your music, like those people are gonna like support you. So there's like that route, and then there's a route of like like the money and like the connections, and it's like it's really hard to say. Like like I said, you can't really be mad at that route, because it's like at the end of the day, it's a music business. It's a business, So it's like there's always, no matter what industry it is, there's always going to be someone that makes their way to the top in like a more snaky way. You know what I mean? And it's hard to say. Like I don't really have much of an opinion on it. It's just like, let those kids do what they want. I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna do my way, and you have your way.
What's your opinion on, like, if you have one, about like schools like Icon, or like when the Fire was around, or stuff like that, like where like it helps you make connections, it helps you meet people, it helps you kind of put yourself in the better position than if you're just releasing songs on DistroKid and SoundCloud, and you're just, like you said, letting more of the fans decide your fate.
it's all about accessibility, right?
Yeah.
If you have the means to do it, like absolutely go for it, because it's not going to do anything but help you. Yeah. So I'm all for it. Like if I could afford to go to Icon, like I would do it. Yeah, why not? Yeah. I mean, considering I'm on FL Studio, it would be a nightmare for me, but because they do all Ableton.
I had a couple buddies that are FL Studio people as well, and they're like, man, I had to like learn how to like produce on Ableton because that's what they were teaching, but then like somehow like convert it over to FL and like still teach myself that way. And it was like hard to like balance. They had like 2 computers while they're going to school.
It makes it harder. Yeah. I would love to do that, like I know so many people that went there that have made like amazing connections out of it, or just like, learning certain things that you might not learn from like a YouTube tutorial, right? Because there's like guest teachers there all the time. Yeah, exactly. You literally have the person in front of you to be like, hey, like, what am I doing wrong here? And that'll make the thing about music production, right? It's not something that like, it's not a skill you're born with. It's something that you have to put the time in to learn. It's just another computer program. You have to learn how to use it, Like, I didn't really come from much of like a musical background, right? I just played the drums. I didn't know anything about like music theory or anything like that. It's just kind of something that I, sat down, listened to music, and like watched some videos and just like figure it out on my own of like, how do I do this? But I mean, when you go to like Icon, like they teach you,
like, it's like step by
what
step
you need to do, and it's a lot better.
Yeah. Were you ever a part of like Defire or anything like online program like that?
They reached out to me to do like a course or a lesson or whatever it was, like a breakdown, and I passed on it.
What was the reason for that?
I'm not a good teacher.
Okay.
Like I've done lessons with people, and I just feel like I get kind of like caught up in my process rather than like how, like, it's hard for me to teach someone that doesn't know what I'm talking about how to do it, right? I'm not very good at like breaking it down in like a simple way, because like for me it's like everything that I know how to do, it's just been self-taught. Like the result of like just figuring it out over the years. So it's kind of like, it may not even be the right way to do something, right? So you also don't like want to teach someone how to do something. What is music?
What is yes,
right, there is no rule to it. Yeah, exactly.
There is a right and a wrong way. Your kick could be louder. Your whatever. Your snare could hit through clearer, whatever it may be. But like at the end, it's like, it's music. Like, is it really a correct?
All right. There's times where like I had friends sitting on Discord. I'm like, oh, can you open that project? Like, I want to see what you did. And they're like, oh, I love that song. And then they listen to it and they look at the project and they're like, oh, that's it. And I'm like, yeah, it's really simple. And they're like, holy shit! Like, I thought there was like a lot more going on. And I'm like, no, it's like as simple as it could be. Like for me, like. The thing I always say when I like have taught lessons is like, less is more. You keep it more simple, it's gonna sound better. And especially like mixing down, it's something that I had a problem with a few years ago, was like just adding stuff to my mixes that I thought I had to do, like compression, right? And then I learned like you don't need to do those things just because everyone else does it. Like to have your own, especially to have your own sound, like just take the route of like what you want to do. So like for me, like it's really like if you look at my projects, it's really simple. It's just like a lot of just like EQing, side chaining, like transient shaping is like literally, and like good sample selection, especially for drums. Like that's like the key.
I've heard sample selection is like major key.
Like what everyone says is you can't polish a turd, right?
Yeah.
If you use like a good kick drum, you don't really need to do anything to it. As long as it stands out in your mix with like good side chaining and like EQing everything else, like you're fine.
I heard Splice was about to start doing something with they were going to be taking away, or they're going to be doing royalty free. Or like if you use like the direct sample, like they're gonna flag you for it and you can't monetize off of it. But then if you like manipulate it in any way, like you're actually able to. Have you heard anything about that? The Splice is changing their like copyright stuff. Really? I don't know too much about it. My roommate's a producer and he told me the other day, but yeah, I wasn't sure if you knew anything about that.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that. That's crazy because I don't know if you know much about like the Vengeance sample packs from like years ago.
I've heard about it.
Those weren't royalty free.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because there was so many like packs of those. So, like, like if you use them, like if you were to use them,
like, what's the point? Like, isn't it? Yeah. That's like they're ruining their whole business plan, aren't they? Like that's what I thought about it.
Yeah, and it's probably just Splice's way of just grabbing some more cash, right? Yeah. Just like running through those royalties, that's crazy because that's their whole,
that's
like
what they
thing
do.
Is like royalty free.
So why they're there?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
If that's true, that's actually insane.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting.
I'll fact check too, and I'll report on maybe a future episode or so on. But yeah, if that does take place, I think that's going to change the game for a lot of people, because I think a lot of people, like you said, like if the sample is good, they're going to use that, and you don't really need to do much to it. But what that's going to be imposing is like people are going to have to do something to it, you know? So it might change the landscape of like the music industry altogether.
Yeah, I say that more for like drums, not really like, you know, I wouldn't just throw like a bass loop on there and be like, oh, it's fine, you know? But like drums are like very important parts of like your mixes, right? And it's like if your drums sound bad, like it's not really a good drop, right? Like it kind of, if it falls flat, if like the kick is really low or the snare doesn't punch, like it loses that like dynamic element of like just like heaviness, you know? So you need like the right sample selection in terms of that. But for, you know, if you were to just throw like bass loops in like a song and not really do much to it, it doesn't, then you're like, oh, this is like cheesy. It's just like drag and drop. But I was just thinking about this. When I started producing, samples weren't easily accessible like they are today, like things like Splice. Like I remember I had like such hard times even finding good kick drums and like 8 years ago. And it's because like there wasn't really a lot of like easily accessible like EDM sample packs out there. Like Serum didn't exist. You can't just like download like a good like bass preset and use it, you know. It was a totally different like playing field back then, and that's why a lot of people popped off easier than they can now, because like
harder to do.
It was a lot it was much easier. If you're a good producer back then, like you're gonna get the recognition, but now there's so many good producers because we have so much tools. So it makes it a lot harder now to stand out, and which is like crazy to think about, because like remember even just finding like a good snare was so hard. Now it's like you type in snare and Splice, you got 20,000 pages of like amazing samples. So that like kids have it. That's why like kids that are like 15, 16 that are producing now are like way better than we were when we were like 16, like 8 years ago. It's a totally different like playing field.
It's crazy. It's gonna be crazy. Like I feel like in the, you know.
Oh yeah, just think about it in like 10 years. What's gonna be accessible? We're
gonna be having the new and upcoming producers are gonna be like 12, like all of them.
It's crazy. It's such a wild thing to think about.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because like in other genres, like there's no way that's gonna happen. I think it's interesting just the fact that like it's EDM and it's possible within our industry.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? Like I said before, like you don't really have to know much about music.
Yeah.
It's just like whatever sounds good. As long as it's like in key, really, that's all that matters. And it's pretty easy to know something's in key. Look at a chart, it tells you what notes are in the key, and that's it.
Do you know more music theory now than you did previously, and how did you go about learning that?
I had a music theory class as an elective, and it was just like so jam-packed that I actually did learn a lot that I still use till today. I have the notebook actually of like all my notes. Yeah. But a
class that we can actually use, right?
that's probably the only class out of my 4 years of college that I use.
That's funny. What did you graduate with? What's your degree in?
Bachelor's in business marketing.
Okay, I have an associate's right now. Yeah, I've learned more about marketing just by doing it than what I've learned in school. Because
when it comes to school, right, it's all textbook.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that you learn, it's from like the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. You're like reading literally old textbooks about like copyright and like, you know, like marketing of like magazines and newspapers and just like such outdated stuff.
I don't understand why they, at least for me, I mean there may be schools out there that do this, but I didn't even have access to a social media marketing class. That's the main marketing tool that I use. Like, why is there not a class on that?
I had an internet marketing class, and it wasn't what I thought it would be. Yeah. So I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, it's all the money grab, right, for colleges at this point.
Yep.
Like, you know, I'm a year off of having the degree. Like, I got it in December.
Okay.
And
congrats.
Like. No, thank you. I have no like use for it right now, and I definitely didn't really learn much from getting it. And just at that point, it's just a waste of money, especially that I'm focusing on like the music industry. I would say there's like very few things that I actually learned.
Yeah, I felt more confident. I'll be going to school at Icon and once I figure out my finances for that. But that's my kind of my next step, and I feel more confident putting money into a school like that because I know that I'm going to be using that education than like going to a 4-year. Like, why am I going to waste my fucking time?
Yeah, because it's not just music production. There's a lot of like branding and marketing that they teach you that like is actually useful in like today's world. You know, like you said, it's like I have a better time. I've learned more from actually just like doing things on like Twitter and Instagram and like running ads and stuff like that than I've ever learned in 4 years of college. You know, like hands-on stuff is way better.
I could have taken this 120 grand and just dumped it into my project. What the fuck?
Yeah, right. Just pull out the loan for your project instead of school.
Yeah, exactly. What would you advise someone who is trying to grow their project, who is maybe in the same shoes that you are and used to be, kind of your journey, that you didn't really have like much money behind you, you kind of had to do everything grassroots? What would you advise someone who's kind of in that same position, who wants to like earn a spot in this industry?
Just, you know, be you, focus on making the music, you know, reach out to like similar producers with like-minded producers, especially like that's at your level, you know, learn stuff from them. Social media, like, you know, running your Twitter up and just like being very interactive and engaging, like that is like one of the biggest things you could do. Like if you create a presence on Twitter, like more people will click on your stuff than like anything could ever do for you. Yeah. And just like there's so many artists out there that I see that have like great social media presence that all of a sudden grow this like big fan base, especially through like TikTok, because it's like super easy to grab their attention. Yeah, exactly. And you know, so you know, I struggle with it, but like definitely focus on TikTok and Twitter is like one of the best things. Instagram and Facebook aren't like necessarily things that are much help, I feel like, anymore. Yeah. Just the algorithm that's pushed is so it doesn't help anyone's brand at all. Yeah. I agree. Definitely. But just like just be you, be a fucking human being, and just show people like who you are and like show them what you have to offer. Yeah. Just be you.
So other than going back to when we started this interview, talking about Lost Lands, other than Lost Lands, what is next for your project? What do you have in store coming up?
Like I said, I have the pack of remixes I'm going to put out in October. Yeah. I have like a few big shows coming up. I already am focusing on my next EP. We're trying to figure out where we want to put it. I have like 5 songs that's ready to go. We just got to find a home for it. If anything, we could always independently release it because, like, at this point in time, like, a good plan, releasing it independently is just as good as releasing on a label, you know? At one point, I feel like self-releasing wasn't as great as what it is now, but just because of, like, the way that labels are and stuff like that, self-releasing is not a bad idea because you have full control of it. You know, you make 100% of the royalties and stuff like that. So... and you just have full creative control. Like, you know, you get to decide what type of artwork you want and, like, just what kind of sound you want to push. Yeah. So it's always, like, a great thing, especially if you're trying to establish, like, your sound or, like, your image. Like, self-releasing is a great thing to do now. Absolutely.
What can we expect from your Lost Lands? I'm excited to see your Lost Lands, man. Like I said previously, your set last year is freaking awesome. So what do we have in store for this year's Lost Lands?
A lot of unreleased music, I would say. There's probably about like 20 to 25 songs that are just straight from me. A lot of collabs and just kind of like pushing the sound that, you know, I'm going for right now. So like I've been having some trouble trying to figure out what I want to play for Lost Lands because I feel like a lot of people have such a high expectation from last year. And because what I did last year, it was just like super natural. It's just like everything that I was liking at the moment is what I played. And for this year, it's like I feel like it has to be just as good or better. And that's really hard and putting a lot of pressure on me, you know? And so, like, I'm excited but super nervous at the same time because I know
just go up and have fun,
people are going to, people are going to expect Lost Lands 2021 from me. And I'm like, I'm going to try my best.
Well,
but it'll be fun, you know.
What day are you playing?
Sunday, 12 a.m. at the Asteroid.
That's right. Yeah, that'll be I'll take note of that so I can make sure and be over at your set. You're actually playing the very first set I'm going to be at. That'll be my 25th birthday, so I'll be at.
Oh wow, hell yeah!
So you'll be my first set.
Happy birthday!
Yeah.
Let's go. That's awesome.
You mentioned something that happened, I think, during last year's set in the first 30 seconds that you wanted me to bring up. What was that?
So I get on stage, I'm playing my intro, and like probably 15 seconds in, the music cuts.
Oh.
And I turn around, and it's this guy just standing there with tears in his eyes. He's crying, and he has his hand over the mixer, and he's like, "You're not playing this." And I was like, what the fuck? In my head, there's like a million things going through my head.
Yeah.
Like, is my set being cut? Is it canceled? Did I play? Is this like, am I not allowed to play this intro? Like, stupid things are going through my head.
What did I do wrong?
And I'm looking at him, and I just hear like someone in the back yell, "Do you know who this guy is?" And I was like, "No." And all of a sudden, like 4 people just like come running up and like try to grab this dude. And I jump off the table, and he's trying to pull the mixer off of this table, trying to like pull it down and throw it onto the ground. And I'm like literally pushing it back, and while they're all trying to like take him down. And he was just like freaking the fuck out. I don't know. He was like not in the right headspace. He was fucked up on something.
Oh, no.
And he was hysterically crying, screaming, just like going crazy.
That's crazy.
And so there was probably about a good like 30 seconds of silence after he turned the music off. And like there's just like a whole commotion going on the stage. And I'm freaking out. This is like my first real big festival. And like immediately 10-15 seconds in, like it gets fucked up, and I'm like, oh my god, my heart's pounding out of my chest. And I just like I gently push the CDJs and mixer back into place, and I just like grab the mic, and I turn around and I look at everyone on stage with me, and everyone's jaws just drop. They're like, what the fuck? And I'm like, I just shake my head. Yeah, and I just like take a deep breath in. I turn around and look at the crowd. I was like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what just happened, but we're going to try to do that over again. And I just pressed play, and I turn around, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, you're already nervous, and then that just adds another layer.
Yeah. As soon as that like first song dropped, I was just like, this is going to be a lot. Yeah. And then after like the first few songs, I was good. I shook it off, and I was in the zone. But like, awesome. It was like the worst thing that could have happened to me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was so crazy.
Well, hopefully that won't happen again this year, and you'll be able to have a fantastic
Honestly,
set.
If it does, it'll be fun. Yeah. I'll be like, let's go. We're gonna make this a thing every year.
Good stuff.
I have a bunch of my friends joking about it. They're like,
I'm gonna jump up there.
I'm gonna turn. They're like, I'm gonna turn it off the first song, and I'm like, I swear to God. It's gonna happen, I bet. Watch, someone's gonna do it.
Yeah, right. I'll wrap it up with a few last questions. One is, where can listeners find you, and how can they support you?
All social medias at Ruvlo Music. Just Ruvlo on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, stuff like that.
To listen to his new EP.
My EP that just came out on Cannonball Records.
Yeah.
I got 2 originals on there, and then 1 collab with my boy Crankdat.
Why did you guys choose Cannonball for that?
I love the label. I love
so do I.
Black Tiger Sex Machine. I love how they run things, and they're very good at just like branding and stuff like that. And it's just like a great label that puts out really good music. Like, I've never heard like a bad song come out on their label. And it's very exclusive too. Like, not a lot, like they have like 6 or so like signed artists, and like outside of that, like they don't just like really take in EPs from like random people. And that was like something that was like really crazy to me, is that they took my EP, and I was like, I'm not a part of their team or anything like that.
It almost makes it
and
feel like a bigger opportunity when it's something like
absolutely. And it took me a little while to realize that. Like, once I realized that, I was like, holy shit, like this is my first EP, and it's coming out on a label that's like very exclusive. Like, this is really cool.
Yeah, it's sick.
So
Congrats.
We're planning to work with them. Thank you. We're gonna plan to work with them more in the future, and
sick.
Hopefully some good stuff comes out of that.
Awesome. Final question: if there's one piece of advice you could tell yourself when you first started making music, what would that be?
That's tough. Don't listen to what other people have to say about your songs. Just stick with your gut, because there's so many times where I made something and I was like, I like this, and I had input from other people, and they're like, oh, like not really feeling this, and I definitely wouldn't finish those songs or anything like that. Or even if I did and I played it out, it'd have like a great crowd reaction. Yeah. So like whatever that's good for you is what's always good for you. Like, take people's advice with a grain of salt. You know, just like be open to feedback, but just go at what you want to do, because that's what you want to do.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today, man. It was really awesome talking to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.